Is that all right now? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Peter, and good morning, everyone. I'm from the island of Aegina in Greece, and I am distributing to you now the message to this conference from Mr. Nektarios Koukoulis, who in 2003 became the first and so far only elected politician in Europe. At that time, he was a member of the Aegina Council, to have raised the issue of chemtrails and secured a decision to take legal action. That decision was later reversed, but the action of the Aegina Council was noted. It has remained on the record. In 2005, it was mentioned in the book on chemtrails by the Austrian journalist Christian Haderer, Verschwörung im Himmel, Conspiracy in the Sky, which unfortunately has not been translated into other languages. It has been translated but not published in English, Greek or anything. It's been published in German. Anyway, so much for that. In Nektarios Koukoulis' message, which you're getting now, it's being circulated to this conference, you will see the observation that citizens now must take their fate and destiny into their own hands. It's not only him who's saying that, of course, but bearing in mind that we are members of the European and global community. He also says, and I agree with this assessment, that his action in 2003 was historic in the context of the struggle against geoengineering in Europe, just as, hopefully, this first international conference on chemtrails that the Belfort Group has organized will also be historic in its implications. That is our hope. The economic warfare against Europe that's been started in Greece, or perhaps it was started in Iceland, it's now been extended to Greece, has triggered a wave of Philhellenism, with many journalists and political activists now saying, we are all Greeks. We're living in a period of political reaction. The period following the collapse of the Soviet Union has many similarities with the period of reaction following the defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte. The French Revolution aroused in the late 18th and early 19th century the same hopes for a liberal and democratic Europe that were aroused for many people in the 20th century by the Bolshevik Revolution. And in our tour of the City Hall of Ghent yesterday, we saw some vivid examples of what the defeat of Napoleon meant for the lives of some very, very prominent political figures in the city. The defeat of Napoleon had a number of contradictory consequences. One of the effects that it had was to unleash a wave of Philhellenism, including above all in Switzerland. And that made it possible for the foundation of today's Greek state in 1828. This was one of the immediate consequences of practical Philhellenism after the defeat of Napoleon. The modern Greek state was founded. Where was it founded? It was founded in Aegina, the island from which Nektarios Koukoulis sent us his message. Now, before talking a little bit about the story of resistance to chemtrails in Aegina, I'd like to make the point that the focus I now adopt is, in some ways, it's the opposite to the focus adopted by the main speakers here today. So it might have been better for me to be speaking towards the end rather than towards the beginning. But anyway, of course, everyone should be tired at the end, or will be tired. So I should count myself lucky to be given an opportunity to speak while everyone is still fresh now. But anyway, if the problem is not just chemtrails, but the political system, the symbiotic system of collusion between journalists, scientists, politicians, that's making all these terrible phenomena possible, then the problem isn't just one of getting the message out. It's also the problem of finding out how this message can be made not just one of many different conflicting messages to which the public is exposed, but how it can become the message. Now, at the moment, apart from the mainstream corporate message, there are, which we get enough of, anyone who watches television gets hardly anything but that. But there are competing oppositional messages. There are competing oppositional messages from the leftists, from the ecologists, neither of whom, in the 7 years that our group has been discussing chemtrails, neither of whom have shown the slightest sign of becoming involved with this subject of chemtrails. Now, moving on to the next picture. What do we have to do? All right, yes, moving on to this picture. This is a picture of the speakers at the first Chemtrails meeting held in Egina in July 2003. The man you see on the right in the black shirt, second from the right, is the convener. He was the convener of the meeting. But because he's a member of the organized extra-parliamentary left, he soon found out that his own political milieu was not responding to his concern about chemtrails, and he stopped being interested himself. Fortunately, on the other hand, the Egina Council, as we said, did become interested. And here, the next picture. Yes, here you can see the council document, which is notifying the prefecture of Piraeus of the council's decision to appoint a lawyer to prepare a suit. Now, the local press also became interested. The next one. As the local press also became interested. Now, of course, it's not only in Egina that attempts have been made in Greece to raise the issue of chemtrails. There are 4 or 5 Greek parliamentarians from different parties, like a number of other parliamentarians in other European countries, and in the European Parliament, who have asked questions in Parliament about chemtrails. But the response they received has always been along the lines of the standard diversionary argument, claiming that chemtrails are simply the condensation trails that have been familiar since the earliest days of jet-propelled travel. And the inquiry stopped there. Now, 7 years have passed since Nectarios Koukoulis spoke to the Council on this subject, but really it hasn't really been until relatively recently that new conditions have arisen, so that for the first time these new conditions open up some prospects for a more effective strategy beginning to be possible. The new conditions are the emergence of non-governmental organizations such as the Etc. Group and more recently the Hands Off Mother Earth, who are formulating a very strong critique of the recommendations for aerosol spraying and other geoengineering activity that are beginning to be put forward by governmental representatives and corporate lobbyists. All right, the picture you see here, the next picture. The picture you see here is from a public meeting in Egina last March, where there was a screening of the Etc. Group's press conference on geoengineering. The Etc. Group and Hands Off Mother Nature both have what activist Jim Thomas describes as an agnostic stance on our claim that planetary aerosol spraying is not just a proposal or something that's happening on a small-scale experimental basis, but it's rather a well-entrenched global reality for much more than a decade, at least. That's a significant difference between us and them, and it's important, I think, that we should handle it in the right way. My position is this. My position is that for a start, we should declare unqualified support for Hands Off Mother Earth's opposition to geoengineering and support for their recent initiative in Nairobi calling for a global moratorium on all geoengineering activities. Not only should we declare unqualified support, but we should ask that this unqualified support be recognized. This unqualified support of our organizations should be recognized and named as supporters. That has not happened yet with the Belfort Group. Has not been named as one of the supporters, although I think Peter has expressed his support. This also applies for another anti-chemtrails group in Volos in Greece. Has not been acknowledged. The orientation of Hands Off Mother Earth has a very positive side to it, which makes it possible for the first time for broad sections of the ecological movement to be won away from the present sterile climate change debate between supporters of anthropogenic climate change on the one hand and skeptics on the other, a debate which is really just a variant of the Democrat versus Republican divide and rule game of mainstream politics in the United States and really everywhere now. To get into a position where we can ourselves be setting the terms for dialogue with semi-friendly groupings like the Etc. Group or Hands Off Mother Earth, we must for a start succeed in attracting a larger membership and gaining more visibility to to offset the advantage that they have from being less distant from the centres of political decision making. We have to counteract that. We have to acquire other advantages. Our hope is that in the coming period in Greece we are going to be able to establish a pan-European network of free citizens so as to give a positive content to today's Philhellenism and to give the slogan that we are hearing today, that we're all Greeks, to give this slogan a content that can go beyond just street violence and destruction, which unfortunately we're having too much of in Greece at the moment. You can keep in touch with our progress by linking to our website Enuranis that's mentioned on the message from Nectarios Koukoulis that I distributed, or of course by linking to the Belfort Group's site, because I'm sure that anything that we succeed in doing in Greece will be reported by our friends here also. Thank you.